Hello to all the White Cloaks and anybody else out there today. Lady Balefire has agreed to join me, and we have a video for you. However, I do feel the need to give something of a trigger warning for this video, as we're going to talk about some disturbing topics. If you are somebody who is bothered by horrible Wheel of Time takes, gross abuse of the English language, the slander of a dead man, and horrible jump cut cringe, you should probably turn away now. The levels of toxic positivity we are about to experience is truly frightening. You have been warned. Today's video is brought to you by a YouTuber named KritterXD, a very passionate supporter of the Wheel of Prime. She has graced the internet with a video explaining her appreciation for the show. And it's a doozy. So without further ado, grab your bottles and your glasses and let's watch this barrel go over the falls. As always, the link is in the description if you want to watch your video uninterrupted or leave a comment. I'm sure she would enjoy the engagement. Before we get started, Lady Balefire, any comments you would like to make before we turn this thing on?
I was just going to say, I was like, hey, you want to make a video? And I'm like, oh, you're going to make me watch this. All I have to say is the horror, the horror. All right, let's do it.
Alrighty. Here we go.
Here's the deal. This video is in response to another video that has the exact opposite premise and a similar, but I would argue somehow way more clickbaity thumbnail and title. Full disclosure.
What do you say to that? Like that chair turn? Like why would you do that?
I have no idea. But I think it's funny that she's criticizing somebody like for clickbait when like her own titles are kind of like that too, but
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we have a collection of Critters thumbnails and titles for you to watch if you would like to. In fact, here's about 10 seconds of it. For those of you that are sort of have a life and are not on the internet frequently, Critter is responding to this video. It is a video by a YouTuber named Man Carrying Thing, and it is the most viewed video on YouTube pertaining to the Wheel of Prime that I have come across. It's got over 700,000 views, it is quite long, and it is quite detailed. I would encourage you to watch it, even though I do think that it went a little light in the criticism of certain aspects. Critter is brave enough to respond to this video, and has even been brave enough to copy his thumbnail. But she is not brave enough to announce that she is responding to his video explicitly, nor does she have the common courtesy to direct her viewers to his video or even say his name. In the YouTube game, that is a bitch move.
I would agree. I really hate when people kind of vague post like this and they're obvious they're talking about somebody, but they won't address the person, all in the name of this fake, like, positivity. And like you said, it's toxic positivity. It's like you're not being positive. You're really just trying to dig at, like, somebody's video or even just make a response to it. Like, I mean, a response video isn't necessarily negative. It's like you're just responding to somebody, but I don't think, like, a lot of people just, they can't like say, oh, you can criticize like my idea without criticizing me, but they don't make the distinction, excuse me.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it really kind of emphasizes her hypocrisy here because the thumbnails and the titles are exactly the same. The only difference is that she changed the word good for bad. So how one could be clickbaity and the other is not really just goes to show that she views any negative commentary about the show to be deeply problematic.
Yeah.
You know,
And personal
anything
too.
that disagrees with her view, yes, and personal as well. It is it's crazy. This is a bizarre take from her.
Though I did not watch that video. The thumbnail made me mad and I decided I didn't need that kind of negativity in my life.
Did she say she didn't like watch the video, but she just decided,
Yes.
oh, the thumbnail, I don't need that negativity in my life? Okay.
Yes. Yes. She is making a response video to a video that she did not watch.
Is this real life? I mean,
Like, yeah, this is some galaxy brained shit right here.
okay, let's go.
I wish that I could bake a cake made out of rainbows and smiles and we'd all eat it and be happy.
Well, remember the end of the Wheel of Time in like Grand is all like, oh, what if there was no Dark One? What if he didn't win? What if everything was good and then he realized how miserable that world was? Dude, it's like a balance. Anyway.
Yeah, and I'll go a step further. Like she dropped that not 5 seconds after accusing somebody else of clickbait. She's like, we must maintain positivity at all times. Unless I don't like you, then everything you do is clickbait. Like this is the most fake ass shit in the world.
Yeah.
A response video to a video she didn't watch. Galaxy brain shit.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you hopefully a way more succinct video explaining why I, a die-hard Wheel of Time book fan who has read all of the books, enjoy the Wheel of Time show on Amazon Prime. And
I think the use of the word succinct here is like kind of an insult as well. Like the clearly not so subtle shot here is that man carrying things video is way too long. And don't get me wrong, it's long. It's an hour and 18 minutes, but it's not invalid because it's long. In fact, it's good because it's long. It has a ton of information and a ton of evidence backing up his points.
I agree.
The idea that succinct is better here is just a double standard, I feel like.
Yeah.
And why I believe that it was, in fact, a very good show. Here's how I'll go about it. I'll talk about the plot, the characters, the quality, and the understanding of the source material.
I don't think that cat wants to be held.
From the Wheel of Time Season 1. Topic number 1, the plot. I maintain that the broad brushstrokes are the same from the books to the show. And
What?
So, it's been a couple months since I've read The Eye of the World. Just correct me. 25% of Eye of the World does not take place in Tar Valon, right?
Yeah, they don't go there.
Okay, I just she's saying broad strokes, but then like a third of the book is made up, but the broad strokes are the same, right?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, like what? Like what about the main plot points? What about the main characters? Like, and all of this stupid crap that show people added? Like, it's a desecration.
Yeah, I also say that I love hearing about Joseph Campbell from people who have never read anything by Joseph Campbell. Like, edgy freshman English students in college love to write bad essays about Joseph Campbell, and like I think she's about to set a personal record for some of the worst.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
The hero's journey popularized by Joseph Campbell to illustrate this point. Campbell used the monomyth to analyze and compare religions.
Okay, I have a question.
No.
What? Okay.
Go ahead.
We're clearly dealing with an adaptation of Eye of the World that was made into a television show. We are not dealing with an adaptation of the monomyth by Joseph Campbell, like, made into a television show. Like, you want to compare apples and bananas. Like, it's not the same thing, bro. Like, dude, like, just... her own argument that Joseph Campbell studied all of these different mythologies and all these different religions to come up with this to create a kind of universal story and say, like, oh, well, the TV show and the book both fit into this monomyth. That's a dumb argument, because it's like the monomyth is something that is so, like, generic. Almost everything will fit into that story structure. And, like, to say that, oh, because both things fit in there, like, they're the same thing. Like, it's not true. It's like saying, oh, look it, there's an animal with 4 legs. Well, like, that's a lion. And then it turns out it's actually a cat. I'm like, just because they both have 4 legs, dude, like, they're not the same thing.
I couldn't agree more. I will also say that claiming that Joseph Campbell used the monomyth to compare religions, like, really misses the point.
Yeah, that's not what was going on with that book.
right? Like all you have to do is look at a lot of the figures discussed that have nothing to do with religion, like Hamlet, Sleeping Beauty, King Gazar, Kiazimba. Like those aren't religious figures. Those are mythological figures that don't have anything to do with the operating religion. So how these could be how it could be used to compare religions, I don't understand. The point of the hero with a thousand faces was to demonstrate sort of the innate human nature and the appreciation that all societies had for heroic stories. It
Yeah,
was to demonstrate, like,
exactly.
yeah, every culture had similar ideals that it was almost, human nature to appreciate these concepts.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. It was meant to try to find like there's so many cultures, so many different cultures have like so many similar stories and so many similar mythologies and religions like seem and religion as an extension of like mythology and storytelling and stuff like they all seem to have these kind of similar steps and so Joseph Campbell was like, "Hey, is there like a universal pattern we can fit these things into?" And that's what he did in the book, but yeah.
ah, this is gonna make me mad. Like, people should not be allowed to talk about Joseph Campbell if the only thing they've done is looked up shit on Wikipedia.
In his famous book from 1949, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, he describes the narrative pattern as follows. The departure, which involves the call to adventure, refusal of the call, supernatural aid, the crossing of the first threshold, and the belly of the whale. There's more, but I would argue that the first season of The Wheel of Time, as well as the first book, basically just involves departure.
Um,
God.
is she serious?
Is this real life?
Like, I legitimately feel like we're being trolled here. Like, the step after the belly of the whale in the hero's journey is the road of trials. A massive portion of the eye of the world is a literal road upon which Matt and Rand travel down, facing all sorts of trials. I, I, I am baffled here. I refuse to believe this is legitimate literary analysis, and anybody who actually believes that the eye of the world is exclusively the departure phase of the hero's journey is criminally stupid.
And can we just talk about something? It's called The Hero's Journey, and I think you and me and pretty much anyone who considers himself a book cloak will agree. I don't think there's any heroes in the television show because Matt, Rand, and Perrin certainly aren't the main characters of the show. The show focuses on the three heroines of like Moraine, Nynaeve, and Egwene. They are the stars of the show, so you can't even say there is a hero's journey because none of the male characters have any meaningful kind of character arcs, so yeah.
Yeah.
If that sounded familiar to you, The Lord of the Rings, especially The Fellowship of the Ring, is a great example of this, as is The Hobbit. Gandalf shows up, tries to get Frodo to leave. Frodo's hesitant. Eventually he goes. They end up having to cross the ferry. You see what I'm saying? Well, in The Wheel of Time, they get their call to adventure.
Jesus. There's a very important word there. The word they. The thing about the hero's journey is it is heroes and it is HERO apostrophe S, as in the journey belongs to one singular hero.
Yes,
You can't have, right?
and each of the characters in the Wheel of Time goes through their own journeys, and it's different for everyone, but like what happens in Eye of the World is like with Rand, I mean he's the like main character for the start of the book, is that he has a very specific like because there's a threshold that has to be crossed. Like you have to learn something or something has to happen that there's no going back from it. And when Rand like starts to experience this on the Winter Night thing with the Trolloc attack on his farm, and when he's coming back with his dad and he's taking his dad to the village, and he finds out that hey, maybe I was adopted or like I'm not who I think I am, and his questioning of his identity carries through the entire book until we reach the end when we figure out that yes, I was definitely adopted and I might be this like dragon reborn person that they think I am.
Yeah, I I think that's a good way of putting it.
But you could break it down for each character. It's like, like kind of like Moraine kind of has her like point of no or crossing the threshold for her, saying like I found these three people. I'm pretty sure one of them is this person, and she casts her lot with them, and she kind of does some things that like like put her at risk, and like she is definitely like literally like cross Terran Ferry, just like in Lord of the Rings where they cross the you're a Lord of the Rings fan. What's it called? It's been I haven't read it.
The river into Jesus, Elrond's kingdom,
Yeah,
Rivendell,
yeah,
the country of
exactly.
Rivendell.
It's the same thing. It's like it's a point. I mean, it's great that it's in both stories because it is a point where they can't go back, and like I mean, she has a point that it is a turning point, but it's like that's just like for the plot. It's not what like the point of no return for the characters. I mean, like when they like I think the biggest thing that I think the show and she's missing too is kind of a point of no return too, if you're going to look at the characters as a group, is when she points out that what, there were only 3 farms that were attacked, and these Trollocs were looking for someone in particular, and it's either you, Matt, Rand, or Perrin. And I do not know why this wasn't in the show, but it's the motivation for the characters to leave.
Well, we know why it's in the show.
Or not in the
Because
show.
oh, yeah, well, we know why it's not in the show because they had to make the women Tavern as well.
Yeah, exactly. And that's so silly, but it's kind of like as the story goes, the women joined them, and it becomes obvious that they're now part of the pattern. And if they're like, I mean, I don't know if you could argue if they're Tavern or not, but they do have their own stories, and yeah, it's a silly point, but
Yeah, I'm baffled by this point because so much of the hero's journey is internal. Like
yeah.
it is a internally transforming one person. So, well, Perrin and Matt and Moraine and Land and Egwene and Nynaeve all go on a journey. It is not a hero's journey. Um, you know,
Yeah,
a,
the
a,
actual
a group
physical
of
journey isn't the same. I mean, look at Perrin. I mean, you could argue his crossing the threshold thing is the whole thing that happens with the wolves when he's forced to look at his relationship with violence and the axe and stuff like that. Or Matt when he's like I was just here for the adventures, and like I have to do something hard and dangerous. That's the right thing, and I don't want to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. Like it's kind of the big like dramatic questions that these characters have to face.
I agree with you. I do think it's different for every person, but I will also say I don't think that Matt and Perrin have a Campbellian hero's journey.
Yeah,
Like
not
the closest
necessarily.
thing, yeah. I mean, Rand is the only one that I would argue that has one, and it's only an Eye of the World, and it is only because it is a very focused, kind of limited narrator perspective. Like almost everything is him, and because everything is him, you get a lot of the internal stuff. Whereas in the show, it's not focused on him, so there can't be, you can't have a hero's journey about a character that, doesn't make any decisions and is just sort of bobbing along
Yeah, and
after somebody.
I think a good like if she like I think if she likes the show, then we have to look at what the show posits as the main characters, which is Egwene and Nynaeve, and like looking at what the show did the show even give them the kind of Campbellian like hero's journey character arc? And I don't think it even did that for them. Like it really didn't succeed on that either.
No, I will trust me. We'll get to that. She's
Yeah,
gonna she's
we
gonna
gotta
bring
keep
that out.
going. We're gonna
Oh
talk
God.
about literature all day.
From Moraine and end up leaving Emansfield. Rand especially continues to push back.
So, um,
That jacket.
I
It's been a
could
minute
be
since I've
wrong
seen
here,
that.
but but I believe we're now done talking about the hero's journey. In her video, I legit think that she just brought it up and then like almost immediately forgot about it. Like we're going to get like 2 or 3 more things that like I'm going to try and connect to the hero's journey, but she doesn't really do it.
Yeah.
Um, so like I think what she was trying to say with Rand was that Rand was like refusing the call, but the refusal of the call isn't being halfway down the path and then having a fit at the actual main character.
Yeah, it's
Like
like it isn't Rand. Like, I mean, I think what she's saying here is this part when Rand starts questioning Rain, and it's like I don't think this is a refusal of the call. Like, he's legitimately questioning a stranger that's basically taken him and his friends out of their town and put them in a really dangerous situation. And I mean, it's not done in the show very well because there's no explanation for why they leave. They don't talk about how the Trollocs were just like targeting their specific farms at all. They don't mention that, so there's no motivation for these characters. So I mean, it sort of makes sense that he would question her motivations here, but this is just because he is literally questioning what she is doing does not mean it's like questioning his call to adventure, because that's never what the call to adventure for Rand was, and we didn't even get it in the show. So
no, I mean, I would argue that there is no refusal of the call in the books. There is, hey boys and girls, we have a call to adventure. It's time to get your carrot top ass on the horse and follow Moraine. Like, there's not a moment where Rand says, "Nah, dude, I'm not gonna do this."
I think it almost
I mean,
comes with him like just not like wanting to it's like it's kind of like his identity. It doesn't want to accept that he's not who he thinks he is. And but I mean, like, yeah, the call to adventure is the Winter Night attack, and or the for crossing the threshold. I mean, the thing with this Campbell thing is like there are a lot of steps, and a lot of people have done work on what he did and kind of come up with a lot of different things, different structural things that make sense. And not every story is going to fit every single step of it, but like they fit the broad strokes. But moving right along.
well, I'm going to say, if I was a freshman in college wasting my parents' money and trying to jam literature into boxes, I would argue that, the refusal of the call in the Eye of the World is, it's a-traditional. The refusal of the call is Rand's entire denying of his identity, blah, 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 blah. But that's stupid. Like, the refusal of the call is predominantly from, like, Greek mythology, where a hero doesn't, like, the gods send him a vision, say, go do something, and the hero either doesn't get it or is just kind of like, no, I'm having fun with my wife and my kids. And so the gods wipe out and kill his wife and kids so that he has to go on the mission because there's nothing for him to stay. Like, a refusal of the call in which you just say, no, I don't want to do this, and then limp-wristedly follow along anyway. That's not a refusal of the call. That's just being a little bitch. Like,
Yeah, and I mean, kind of like by your definition too, you could just say, oh, it was the whole Winter Night incident. Like on a plot level, I think it's gonna vary per character, but yeah.
a modern example would be fucking Luke Skywalker's parents getting wiped out, or not
Exactly.
parents, aunt
It's
and
like the
uncle getting wiped
moment
out as
that
powers.
it's never nothing's going to be the same. So
Yeah, oh my god.
Moraine played the role of the supernatural aide, informing Egwene of her potential.
okay.
I'm gonna provide any commentary here about how Egwene
That's her
is
supernatural
actually the main
aid.
character.
Yeah, her supernatural aid is to tell Egwene of her potential. Okay, in the books, like, oh my gosh, did you just notice in this like thing that like Moraine has her fingernails painted?
Not. Oh my god.
Wow, I don't think
Why
we
would
caught
they-
that in the rewatch. Oh my goodness.
I don't think we did either.
Well, that's why
Oh
you
my
need
God.
that's why you need the women's circle, Alex. Oh, no, but like
Clearly.
let's Siri just talk about like the supernatural aid comes when she starts fighting off the Trollocs using the one power, but I mean, does that happen in the show? No. I mean, it does kind of, but it's silly, and then like it happens like when she drowns the like guy on the ferry. Like,
Right? I mean, I would almost argue that, supernatural aid either comes in the form of a rescue that happens, or it comes in the form of like giving the hero like a magic sword or something to cut through people. Like,
yeah. It's not telling someone
Jesus.
of their potential, and it's like the whole point of a hero's journey where you are learning of your potential is that you learn how to use your power. Like, it's just like all of a sudden, oh, You're like Aes Sedai. You're going to start wielding the one power right now, and like there's no training at all. Like it just happens.
Yeah. I'm very. When people say that Egwene is the main character, this is what I'm going to point to. Egwene has now taken more steps in the hero's journey than Rand has.
Yeah, exactly. But even they didn't do a good job at her either. So
Oh no, I mean they don't do a good job of any of these at any of these steps, even if we are going to give them credit for having tried them.
yep.
and teaching her what she could do with it. They cross the Terran Ferry while pursued by Shadowspawn. They're forced into Shadar Logoth, where Matt finds and takes the dagger that will plague him for a long, long time. Nynaeve?
Yeah, but remember, it's not the dagger that's evil. It's Matt. Matt's evil.
Yes. Yes. I also just want to note here that we are done with we've now like we this is the last scene of episode 2. Um and we are now done with the departure phase of the
Yeah.
hero's journey as defined by her.
Yeah.
Like so apparently we have 6 episodes to go and we have not talked about anything. We didn't accomplish anything else in that on that cycle. I apologize. Earlier I said she was done with Joseph Campbell. No, she puttered about for 2 more sentences. No, this is where she is done with the Joseph Campbell stuff. It will not be brought up ever again.
Returns after everyone.
Oh, not Dana, the Tumblr barmaid!
Do we want to talk about the absolute disaster that was Nynaeve, like returning? That
Ugh.
like the horrible implications of what that means about her character.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so bear with me because I know I've gone on this rant a couple times, but so in the books, Nynaeve isn't captured. She like helps everybody get better. She arranges for another wisdom to come down. The village thinks that Moraine kidnapped all of their older teenagers, but not like adults in the village. So they vote to send Nynaeve after them to figure out what the fuck happened.
Yeah.
A fairly logical sequence of events, I would think, right?
Yes.
And in addition, Nynaeve only catches up to them when they've stopped at a town. Like
Yes.
they've been there a couple days. That gives her time to catch up with them, right? Like
Yes.
I'm not okay. In the show, Nynaeve is captured, dragged out of town, so she doesn't know anything that's happening. Back in the town, Moraine tells them all they have to leave. All of the grown-ass adults leave. The parents watch their grown-ass adult children leave. And then they go off on an adventure and they eventually end up at Shadow Logoth.
Yeah.
At which point, what did Nynaeve do here? Did she get back to the village, hear about, hey, the grown-ups left, and then teleport to Shatter Logoth and just like abandon everybody else here? Because
Yeah.
there was no way she would have caught up to him in time. And her leaving implies that she left the wounded to die. Because there's no way she could have known that they were kidnapped such that she could have left directly from the Trolloc, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Oh my
it's
God.
sad because it's like that. What happens before she meets up with them gives us a lot of information about Nynaeve as a person, as a character, like who she is. I mean, her whole drive is that she wants to protect the other kids from Moraine. She doesn't trust Moraine, and it's like, no, that's not the case here. It's just Moraine says we're all going to go to White Tower, and yeah.
Oh, and how could I forget? She tried to kill an unarmed prisoner.
Yeah.
That was her only lead to finding the kids. Nynaeve tried to murder Lan.
Yeah.
That is totally a thing that happened. What an absolute disaster.
Has been separated. Rand and Matt encounter some dark friends, and
So I've been racking my brain here. How many dark friends did they encounter?
I don't remember, honestly. I don't think they did. They just got split up. Oh, they got split up in Shadow Logoth, and they didn't come back together, did they?
Well, Matt and Rand encountered, as far as I can remember, they encountered one dark friend.
Yeah, like when they're like
So
split up and the like that chick that tries to kill him in the barn. But I don't think that happened
yeah,
in the show.
no, in the show, well, no, in the books they encountered Peter, the dagger assassin, and the lightning guy.
Yeah.
In the book, Rand's road of trials on his hero's journey was dealing with a drugged up best friend and a mid looking black chick trying to sleep with him and then stealing his stuff and trying to stab him when he refused.
Yeah.
That's not epic fantasy. That's like a Tuesday night out in Atlanta. Like, how is this a like an epic fantasy story? That this is ridiculous.
I know, and
Like,
then I think if I remember correctly, I remember like Rand and Matt, like they're like, how do we know who's the dark friend and who isn't? And like, there's a question, like it's kind of like a metaphor for kind of like growing up, and you're like, I don't know who's a good person and who can I trust. I don't know, but like in the show, just doesn't happen.
yeah, I just let the record reflect. She's dead ass wrong. There were not dark friends plural. There was one dark friend singular.
Perrin and Egwene encounter some Tinkers. And did I mention that in this episode, Tom's absence has been rectified? Meanwhile, they've all...
Um,
No, do not start me on the freaking character assassination of Thom Merrilin. Yeah, his absence has been rectified by a very poorly like rendered song. By you're substituting this guy that was there from the beginning, kind of questioning the Aes Sedai, like what's going on here? Like why is there this weird like peddler? Why are there all these Trollocs? Like this is something that doesn't smell right. And you replace that guy that's looking out for the boys with like a guy that robs Matt and Rand. Like he's not even a good singer. Like he's just evil. I don't understand.
he's an asshole. I also think this line talks so much to her like her thought process for how television adaptations should go. It's like
Yeah.
Tom's here. We can check off the Thom Merrilin box on the sheet. Like,
Yeah.
and so long as we have enough boxes checked off, it's a good show. You're like, no, this is not remotely how television is supposed to work. Like, Jesus Christ. If you remove Thom Merrilin from like this from this episode and just, you know, Matt and Rand just don't get ambushed by Dana the Dark Friend, this story changes not one iota.
I know, it's like the things that happen in this show don't do anything really to advance the plot or tell us anything about the characters.
No, this is especially funny since they just confirmed that he's not going to be in season 2.
I know, I thought
So,
that's funny. I'm like, now do the other characters.
yeah, right. No, I mean, like, at this point, why do you even include Thom Merrilin at all? Like, I mean, when do you include Tom? I mean, because at this point, he's just basically going to be hanging out and having Elaine creep
I
on
don't
him for a
want
bunch
them
of
to
books.
like include Tom in this third rendition. It's so bad. It's like he does nothing for the characters. He helps him. I mean, like the part where Tom is traveling down the river with like Matt and Rand. I mean, it's so important for them. And it's like when Matt and Rand have hard times and stuff and they get separated from Tom, who heroically sacrifices himself so they can escape the withdrawal. Like, they just remember all of the things that Tom taught them, and when they're on the road to Camelin, like, they're talking about, oh my gosh, like, Rand's playing the flute, and he's like, Tom taught me this. Like, Tom, like, he taught us the stories, he taught Matt how to juggle. It's like they're using the skills that, even the rudimentary skills that, like, Tom taught them to survive. It's like, you know, a positive male role model in these guys' life, teaching them things that make them better people. Like, I can't. Like, that's so important. That's the key of this freaking story. And you're like, no, oh, you got this, like, you know, it's just a gritty, realistic guy. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks. I really wanted a Walmart Johnny Cash rather than, you know, Thom Merrilin with his quilt of or his cloak of quilt. Like, God.
Yeah, I mean, she's gonna talk about that later in the video, but yeah, I have feelings about that too.
Been having some crazy dreams, and Perrin starts his lifelong relationship with the wolves.
The dogs.
So, okay. So, do you think that her idea of starting a relationship is getting licked outside for 5 seconds and then having no communication for months at a time? Because that's what I'm getting from her comment here about this being the start of a relationship. But we didn't see it happen. So, like,
I don't
why?
think that's a really good way to start any kind of relationship. I'm just throwing that
Right?
out there. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Jesus. But, hey, this isn't supernatural aid, right?
Perrin and Egwene have a violent interaction with the White Cloaks. We finally get some golden eyes.
Great. Golden eyes. Wonderful.
Oh, God. Yeah, okay. We're not going to go off on the White Cloaks.
In a big city, they find Loyal and take the ways to Fal Dara, with one notable exception in Matt, but that's not the fault of the writers. That was extenuating circumstances, and I won't hold that against them.
You should, though. Like, you should hold that against them. Like, even if Matt can't come to Fal Dara because the actor dipped out of this disaster, the obvious solution is to leave him back at the tower and claim that he's too sick to go on.
I know, that was so poorly done, and I just have no, I have no words for it. It's like, you have no problem with what they did? Like, I don't get this. Like, how is this okay? Like, I mean, obviously the question you want to look at is the story. Is it like, do the changes that they make to the fundamental story make it better or make it worse? Do they streamline the plot for a television, or do they, just ruin it? I don't think the answer's yes for this television show.
No. By having him go all the way to the Way Game, he is thoroughly character assassin. He completely abandons his friends.
He does.
And
he's evil. This is just not a character that... And the other thing, too, is, she's gonna go on and talk about this, but maybe we'll wait till we get to that point. But it's it doesn't make him a better character. It doesn't set him up for anything, but we'll wait till we get there.
Yeah. I mean, the only reason that I think they brought him out there was so that they could start the love triangle bullshit argument.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine assassinating Matt Cawthon so you could facilitate a Perrin, Egwene, Rand love triangle.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, how is that? I mean, I would defy anybody to defend that. I don't think it's defensible.
Rand has a confrontation with Ashamiel, believing he's the Dark One at the Eye of the World.
How can you even call that a freaking, confrontation? He doesn't do anything. It's it's not what she wants, and, there's no fight. I mean, if anyone gets hurt in that confrontation, it's Rand, because Moraine has a freaking dagger to his throat. Oh my goodness.
Right? Jesus.
He does nothing. He has no agency. A lot of, people will say this about female characters. It's they're never allowed to be, proactive. They never do anything. They have no agency. Well, it's the opposite in this show. The male characters have no agency. He's literally just sitting there, and people are talking at him. He doesn't really even talk to them. And he's just kind of lying in that weird, Aes Sedai symbol thing on the floor, and... yeah.
Jesus.
If you've read The Eye of the World, then you know that all of those things happened in the book. The broad brushstrokes were absolutely there.
No, they weren't. If you're gonna talk about broad brushstrokes, it's you missed all of the really important stuff. There was no, the whole reason for them leaving, the town to go after the attack, that wasn't there. That we didn't have Perrin's do I choose violence or use of violence thing kind of happening. We didn't have like the own female character showing their own ability to have their own agency and say, hey, if you guys are leaving, we're going with you. And in Gwen's case, she just wants to see the world. She wants to have her adventure. In Nynaeve's case, she's doing the motherly thing and looking after the people from her village. Like, I think, like, okay, because some vague things happened that also happened in the books, and I'd argue in the show that the things that she's talking about aren't even major plot points in the show.
I would agree. I would agree that and I think she even acknowledges this later that the Aes Sedai stuff was what they considered to be the main plot points of the
Yeah,
show.
that's nowhere even in any part in any of the books. The stupid warder crap, like, that is not in the books. This isn't like, and it doesn't add anything to the story that the show is trying to tell either, so.
Actually, I was going to say, did you ever see the that Christ picture from Spain, where the it was like a 1600s like picture or something like that, and an amateur tried to restore it, and it ended up
Yes,
looking like
yes, I know
horrible.
exactly
Yeah,
what you're talking about, and that was like kind of my thing. Like her saying, "Oh, these are the broad story, the strokes of the story." That is saying like, "Oh, look at that creature with four legs is a cat, and it turns out to be a lion." Like just because it has four legs doesn't make it a cat or a lion or a dog or a cow. Like four legs doesn't mean it's the same thing.
yeah. Actually, it just occurred to me the better version of that is Dane's horse meme. Like,
Yeah, I was
yeah,
thinking
man,
of that too.
they're both horses. The broad brush is there, but yeah, no,
Yeah.
broad brush strokes aren't what makes a show good. It's the fine details, much like a painting.
Yeah.
Changed a few things, absolutely.
We noticed.
But they were always going to change a few things. You can't take a line-by-line adaptation of a book, put it into a show, and have it be successful. That's just impossible.
Yeah, I totally agree with you with that. But again, and this was the question I raised before, does do the changes that they made, do they make the story better or do they make the story worse? I could understand some things. Like if I had to adapt Eye of the World, I would say like we don't need to stop in Bael'Ron. We can just make the things that happen in Bael'Ron happen in Camelin. You know, you can make it all happen there, and like the story's still working, and you're going to respect like the plot and the character developments and what happens. Like that would be an acceptable change. Like going out and like fundamentally changing the nature of the characters and their like moral alignment is not a positive change. Adding themes that go directly against what Robert Jordan wrote about in his own like personal beliefs is not a positive change that needs to be in the show. Like it didn't help them, and worse yet, the changes that they made didn't make their show better. Like they can't even be consistent with themselves.
No, I. This is such a bullshit straw man argument. Like no one has ever argued that they wanted a line by line retelling of the Eye of the World. This is such a bullshit strongman argument. Like nobody has ever argued for a line by line retelling.
I
What we
know.
wanted was like we wanted a faithful adaptation, and this wasn't even close. And anybody who's going to argue otherwise is going to have to explain to me what the fuck happened with Steppen. Like,
Yeah. A good
good.
adaptation should respect like the themes and the characters and what the author's like kind of just like statement on the world is. I mean, like the reason I love Wheel of Time so much is because it gives like a world, like the world is breaking down. There's a lot of evil in the world. A lot of the bad things happen, and a lot of characters are put in positions where they have to choose, like, do I do something that is benefits me or benefits other people? And like, what are the ramifications of that? And the characters make those choices and they choose hope and positivity, and that is, to me, that is why I love this story. It's because despite of all of this happens, like it's hopeful. Like there is the idea that like yes, you can, like, you make personal sacrifices to have a better world, and I don't think that's the same thesis that the show has. I mean, the show is so nihilistic, it's so dark, everyone is bad. I mean, they're not respecting that at all.
I couldn't have said it better. Like it is not even close to Faith. Did you notice that her broad brushstroke summary of the plot that she provided, mind you, uh, didn't mention any of the Aes Sedai bullshit that clogged up the middle third of the season? Like,
True.
so it turns out that none of that shit actually mattered to the story, and it was just filler bullshit to send the message. Like, that's all it was.
Yeah, exactly.
I just can't do it, Captain. I don't have the power.
Not to mention,
Are we going to talk about the
The show had an $80 million budget. $80 million. That's more money than a lot of films get. I worked in indie film. It's like you can make a movie for less than $1 million. You can make it for like 500,000. You can make it for 1,000 and still tell a better story. It's not a question of like COVID restrictions. It's not a question of budget. It's massive failure.
That's one way of putting it. I was laughing at the how fucking fitting it is that she has Rafe Judkins as Ace Ventura, except that like Ace Ventura occasionally actually like gets something right. Like, but
Yeah, agreed.
Rafe Judkins as a Jim Carrey playing somebody with mental disabilities is just perfectly on point.
Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah. Oh my god.